Good morning. Today we'll deal with the last portion of our chapter, Dual Nature of Radiation and Matter. And we'll start our class with the discussion on how wave theory failed to explain photoelectric effect. So in the preceding chapter, we learned about phenomena like interference, diffraction, and of course there is polarization, which can be explained only on the basis of the wave nature of light. But in this chapter, we learned about photoelectric effect. Also, there's another effect called the Compton effect, which you don't have to learn. But these two phenomena could not be explained on the basis of wave nature of light. Let's look into what were the shortcomings, why wave theory could not explain the photoelectric effect. The first thing we'll be discussing is the intensity. Now, as we know from our chapter wave optics, the intensity of a wave is directly proportional to the square of the amplitude. And in the chapter EM waves, we discussed how electromagnetic radiation is made up of, is consisting of an electric field and a magnetic field, both perpendicular to each other. So if you look at the amplitude of the electric field, we know that the maximum value of electric field is E naught. So this amplitude, so greater the intensity, greater is the amplitude, that is the electric field of that radiation. And we also know that the force experienced by a charged particle is Q times E. So which means greater the intensity, greater is the amplitude of the electric field, which means greater is the force experienced by an electron on the metal surface when light is incident on that metal surface. Greater the force, greater will be the acceleration, and so greater the velocity. So kinetic energy of that electron also has to be larger. So which means in wave optics, if you increase the intensity, you are increasing the kinetic energy of the emitted electron, which is not true we saw in photoelectric effect. Very clearly we studied in photoelectric effect from our equation. We have Einstein's equation, which says h nu is equal to phi 0 plus half mv square, which is the kinetic energy of the emitted electron. So it is an increase in frequency that causes an increase in the kinetic energy of the electron, not an increase in intensity. Increase in intensity does not have an increase in the any effect on the kinetic energy of the emitted electrons, which is not what wave theory tells us. According to wave theory, we just saw greater the intensity, greater is the electric field, greater is the force experienced by the electron, therefore greater will be the kinetic energy. So this is one drawback, that is wave theory is unable to explain how intensity has no effect on the kinetic energy of the emitted electron. The second point that we need to discuss is the frequency. Now, from what we discussed just now, it means that whatever may be the frequency of the radiation that is incident on the metal surface, whatever may be the frequency, meaning that it has an energy h nu, independent of the frequency, if you increase the intensity, you are increasing the force experienced by each electron, and which means the kinetic energy of the electron is going on increasing. So at some sufficient intensity, the kinetic energy of the electron must be large enough to be emitted from the metal surface. But this is not true, because we have the concept of threshold frequency, where in photoelectric effect, however high the intensity may be, if the frequency of the radiation is not equal to or above a minimum value called the threshold frequency, no photoelectric emission will take place. So this is also against wave theory, because according to wave theory, I just told you, if you go on increasing the intensity, at some point the kinetic energy of the electron will be large enough that it can be emitted from the surface of the metal. That does not happen in photoelectric effect. There is a minimum value of frequency called the threshold frequency, below which, however high the intensity may be, the photoelectrons are not emitted from the metal surface. And the third point I need to discuss with you now here is about the time lag. Now, experiments on photoelectric effect shows that there is no time lag, a very small time lag of the order of 10 raised to minus 9 seconds. As soon as the radiation is incident on the metal surface, if the frequency of this, or let's say the energy of this incident radiation, if it is greater than the work function, immediately photoelectrons are emitted from the metal surface. But according to wave theory, when a wavefront is incident on this metal surface, there are a large number of electrons on the surface of the metal. So all of these metal electrons must absorb energy from the incident radiation, which means it will take time for each electron to absorb sufficient energy to be able to be emitted from the metal surface. But which means there will be some time lag for the electron to absorb sufficient energy so that it can be ejected from the metal surface. But in a photoelectric effect, we see that there is no time lag. It's a very small time, that is 10 raised to minus 9 seconds. And so that is another point where wave theory is unable to explain this photoelectric effect. So we have now seen in our preceding chapter, like I told you, phenomenon like polarization, diffraction and interference can only be explained if we consider radiation or light as having a wave nature. And in this chapter, we just saw that photoelectric effect can only be explained on the basis of particle nature. So we have now accepted the dual nature of light. So naturally, the question arises that if electromagnetic radiation, that is light, has dual nature, surely matter must also have dual nature. It should show wave properties too. As early as 1906, I think it is in 1906 that it was already discovered, J.J. Thomson discovered the electron, and that atoms are made up of particles called electrons and we have protons. So the particle nature of matter was already determined much earlier. In 1924, the French physicist called de Broglie put forward this concept that particles do have wave nature, and the wavelength associated with a particle, which he called the de Broglie wavelength, the expression he gave for that is lambda, the wavelength associated with a particle, is equal to h by p, where p stands for the momentum of the particle. So it can also be written as h by mass into velocity, momentum being the mass product of mass into velocity. We also know our expression for kinetic energy is p square by 2m, from which I may write p equal to root of 2mk, where m is the mass of the particle and k is the kinetic energy with which it is moving. So I may replace this equation lambda by h by root of 2mk. Also, we learned in the second chapter that the work done is work done on a charged particle. So these are the equations that I already wrote down. So from here, we know that the work done on a particle is equal to its kinetic energy, which is work done we know is Q times V when the electron is accelerated through a potential difference V. So we may write our equation here can be replaced with lambda equal to h by root of 2m. Instead of k, I may write EV, where E happens to be the charge of an electron. It just happens to be the charge of that particle that is being accelerated through a potential difference V. So this is the potential difference across which we have this acceleration. If you are talking about an electron, this mass of the particle is replaced with 9.1 into 10 raised to minus 31 kilogram. Electronic charge is 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb, and H is 6.63 into 10 raised to minus 34 joule second. So if you substitute all these values, for an electron, we may write it, simplify it to 1.227 by root V, and you get the wavelength in nanometer. Also, if you have this particle at the temperature capital T, you know that the kinetic energy, last year you have learned, is equal to 3 by 2 kBT, where kB is Boltzmann constant and T is the temperature in Kelvin. So I may also replace this equation as lambda is equal to h by root of 2m into kinetic energy is 3 by 2 kBT, from which you may cancel this and you have this equation h by root of 3m kBT, where kB is the Boltzmann constant. So now from our equation, lambda is equal to h by m into v. Suppose you're talking about macroscopic particles like objects, like let's say a ball whose mass is, let's say, 0.12 kilogram and is moving with a speed of 20 meter per second. If you substitute these values here in this equation, you will see that the lambda is of the order of 10 raised to minus 34 meter. So you see how small that value is. So on a macroscopic level, like a football, which is moving with a velocity of 20 meter per second, the wavelength of that associated with that object is so small that it cannot exhibit exhibit wave properties. It does, but it's too small. The wavelength is too small. But on the other hand, if you're talking about an electron accelerated through a potential difference of, let's say, 100 volt, you will see if you put those values here, electron 1.227 by root 100 would give you 0.1227 nanometer, and you will see that this value is large enough for an electron to exhibit wave properties. So in 1927, two physicists, Davison and Germer, experimentally verified the wave nature of particle by conducting experiments using electron beams, and they found out that the theoretical value and the experimental value of the wavelength of an electron was the same. So that it was verified that electrons do have wave nature, particles have wave nature. Also independently, GP Thomson also verified the wave nature of matter particles. It is interesting to note that in 1906, J.J. Thomson was awarded the Nobel Prize for discovering the electron as a particle of the as a subatomic particle, and 30 years later, in 1937, his son G.P. Thomson was awarded the Nobel Prize for proving that electron was had a wave nature. So it's like the son proving the father wrong. When the father said that the electron is a particle, the son says no, it is a wave. But anyway, now we have accepted that particles have both, matter has both particle nature as well as wave nature. So thank you, and that's the end of our chapter, dual nature of radiation and matter. Thank you.